This is the sluggo, slant and go.
Casey, the Beef Cregan, I am always happy to talk to you. And if I get this right, I'll be happy to see you also. There you are, my friend. Always happy to talk to you, but this week more than usual because I have electricity and it's not -5 degrees outside. What's happening in Jersey, bud?
Yeah, well, we're feeling the same way, but we did miss last week, unfortunately. But I'm glad everything's going well for you down there in Texas, and everybody seems to be getting back to the up and up down there. We're doing fine. We're still under a little bit of snow up here, but it was about 55 degrees today. It was beautiful. Of course, I was stuck in the basement, but it was really nice to see sun, which we hadn't seen in a while here.
36 out of 37 weeks is not bad for a rookie show. And, you know, if we were going to be screwed up by weather, I would have thought it would have been West Orange, New Jersey, and not Kyle, Texas. But the roles were a little bit reversed. And I learned a lot of things during that 4 days. I learned that my 14-year-old has more patience than I ever thought. Of course, he even did 2 assignments on his phone, school assignments, even though school was canceled those days. I didn't even do virtual. But the other thing I learned is people my age and perhaps your age too depend a heck of a lot on Facebook. Now, there was a lot of good stuff coming out of that Facebook, the neighborhood group, very large neighborhood. A lot of good things. People were sharing food and water and all those kind of good things. But about when we started coming out of it, one of the people, you know, they were asking, is this open? Is that open? Whatever. Is grocery store open? Is this? You know, and everybody's very helpful, but then finally they reached the point where I was. When somebody said, is Domino's open? And then the only response she got was, have you tried calling them? They wouldn't even call the places. They would just go on the Facebook. I was like, you can dial 7 digits or 10, I guess, or you can redo a Facebook post. They were opting for the Facebook post, but neighborhood worked together. It was good. We all made it through it. Some houses worse than others. But enough about the weather. We're having Houston on, Houston Burnett for the second time. So I thought I'd wear my Coleman College shirt for the second time. I didn't want to wear my Houston shirt, but I do Houston. I have my Houston Astros hat on. So what is I forgot to say, you won our first ever bet. I don't want to let this go. I don't know if you remember this. We bet on the Rutgers final recruiting rankings because you were pimping out Shiano, and I was like, well, that's, you know, it's August. They're going to get passed. And they got passed. They dropped. But they were like 37th, I want to say, or 41st? 37th.
Yeah, they finished strong last year. They had a couple flips even from higher-ranked schools. They just got a 4-star. I should have had his name prepared here today. Instead, I was doing homework on the baseball series coming up. But they just got a 4-star flip who was down to Oregon, Alabama, Auburn, and Rutgers, and chose Rutgers. So they're trying. They're currently 11th, I believe, according to Rivals for 2022. So Shiano's making a little bit of waves. You know, maybe they win 3-4 games in the Big Ten next year or the year after.
Well, they did beat South Carolina. Of course, I think 142 schools beat South Carolina. Actually, I lie. I think Gamecocks came in about 38. But Kevron checks in. Hey, Kevron.
Always good to see you. Always good to see Kevron.
All right. You and I have been looking forward to this show for a while now. And we had Houston on back in October, I think. And then we had a little cameo around Notre Dame time. But we had such a good time. He fits right in with our mantra and our beliefs, except neither you and I could grow beer. Well, I'm speaking for myself. I can't do it. This man is the king of beers. He is from the Morgan Thomas Show. Welcome in, Houston Burnett.
What's up, boys? What's going on?
All right.
That beard is a lot more well kept now.
Yeah, I mean, when we had our daughter back in December, we noticed when I had her, she burrows her neck in my beard when she's laying on me. So when you've got longer hair and she's just doing that, you're like, oh, all right, I need to do something about that. So that's what I did. I might be on mute every now and again in between questions. She's a little ornery tonight.
That's all right. And before we start, I did want to say, because we had you on in October and we knew you guys were expecting. So congratulations on being a dad. Is there anything better in the world than being a dad?
Oh, this is nuts, man. It's the coolest thing ever. I think 2 weeks into it was the Notre Dame game, and I got to dress her up in a little Clemson onesie, send it out to everybody I knew. I was like, this is where it's at right here.
It's cool. It is a lot of fun. Mine's a teenager now, so there's some fun mixed in with some staying in the room for hours at a time watching videos and whatever. But Houston, before we have a guest on here, we have to do detailed research on that guest to make sure he fits our standards. So I did that research on Mr. Burnett, and unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, here's my results from my Google search. I found you as a youngster, as I think this is kindergarten. I'm not sure, but
yeah, I don't know about that. I mean, that might have been first grade. I mean, a true story. This is a true story. I was about this tall in sixth grade, so I didn't have any facial hair yet. But I was about 6 foot tall in sixth grade. So I was on my dad's. He coached an elementary school church league basketball team. And I'm not kidding that I was the Shaquille O'Neal of that league. I was doing a triple-double every game. It's the only time I've ever been the player of the year MVP of a league. And it's just because I was taller than everyone else.
I think you were the kid in Little League with the beard. That's kind of how I picture you. That everybody's scared of. Everybody's scared of the kid with the beard. All right.
I definitely have that similar story too. And I peaked in 8th grade, so
yeah. Hey, yeah. I wasn't far off. Yep.
It was down like that afterwards.
I went from tallest kid in the league to the poor man's trashy version of Tyler Hansborough.
I think, very, very similar here. I'm not called seldom used reserve for nothing. All right. Spring football, Houston. Now, everybody was looking forward to this. The FCS season has started. We both talked a lot of junk. We're going to do everything. We're going to watch these games. We're going to talk about them. And guess what? I watched the first one or some of it just because it was Tarleton State and it was Texas, and it was a really exciting game. Went to overtime, but I don't think I've seen 2 seconds of FCS games since then. And I put a poll up on the Facebook group the other day, and I think 3 people have paid attention to, the poll for one, but also FCS football. Have you watched any of it at all?
Yeah, actually, I have. I mean, I haven't really gone anywhere since we had our baby, and I won't watch as much this weekend. I'm finally getting out a little bit. But last weekend, I watched Furman. My wife went to Furman. I watched all of that game. Actually, it's kind of weird. They're like a quasi coastal Georgia Tech offense. It's actually kind of fun to watch because it's not just line up and run the same JV offense over and over again. There's actually some variations to it. And then I dig watching North Dakota State. I made some time to watch about 20 minutes of that game. They're kind of boring this year. They don't have Trey Lance. It's just line up and just ground you into dust. But it was entertaining. I mean, I know it's not, not the same, but at the same time, it's football. So it's like XFL.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I think I need to make a little bit of time to do it too. I've literally just been so programmed as to what I watch at the time of year. I haven't even thought about it. And I think you're right. I would have loved to watch Furman play in North Dakota State, absolutely. But I pull for James Madison a little bit on that level as well. And I don't know anything about him this year, so I think I'm going to have to make some time.
Yeah, I might end up watching a little bit, but I just haven't been into it. I think there's just too much going on right now with college baseball starting. I know we're all 3 big Clemson baseball fans, and we'll get to that in a few minutes. But I haven't been interested. I think it's kind of like the side chick, right? It's great during the season because when there's not a big game on, you can always flip on and watch Furman, for example. But when there's nothing else there, it's kind of like, let me check something else out. Let me go another way here. Our guest tonight is Houston Burnett from the Morgan Thomas Show. We're going to talk a little Clemson football now, Houston. Lots of news out there, lots of news today. Spring practice started today, but I wanted to get your thoughts on what the biggest question marks are for Clemson in this spring. How about just choose one if you can? I know that's tough because there are a lot of question marks in my mind. I wrote a 5-minute read about it, but biggest question mark for you, what question needs to be answered for you this spring?
So I think this goes back to I think Dabo had a press conference today. I caught a little bit on Twitter, and so the one thing that kind of sticks out to me is the offensive line. I know that some people were clamoring for like transfer portal this, transfer portal that. I'm saying kind of just stay patient because Clemson is starting to recruit more of an elite level at that position. We haven't done that. Clemson hasn't done that in my lifetime, at least as far as the linemen that were brought in 2020 and 2021 and what we've got lined up in 2022. So being able to develop that, I think, although it's not juniors and seniors this time around, I feel like it's more talented freshmen and sophomores. So if you can get them to gel and pick up things quicker, it's not going to be perfect. And I honestly don't think that, if fans are loud or if there's a televised spring game, you're going to see too much out of either side of the ball this year as far as the changes they're going to make. But the development of the offensive line.
Casey, you're up, bud.
I think I get shell-shocked with the way that the season ended, especially, or even how the season went this past year with health. And I'm not even talking COVID related. And so obviously my eyes immediately go to the wide receiver position. If they're able to get healthy lads, and this is JP Priester, I believe, said it in one of his articles, that this is a year that they can actually get passed by the younger kids. This is a year that the recruits that are recruited to take their jobs are going to be on campus. So I look at health, especially in the wide receiver room, for guys like Ngata, for guys like Ladson, even Justin Ross a little bit. Although I think if he's 80%, he'll be better than 90% of the. Like that was math. He'll be better than 90% of the wide receivers. But I think health overall, but it's especially in the wide receiver room.
All right, so we have the offensive line and wide receivers. I'm going on the other side of the ball. In that same article that I wrote for the College Sports Network, I was looking at the defensive line. Clemson wins championships when their defensive line is great. Kind of took a little hit today when Justin Foster announced he's not returning. But to me, you've got to have not just a solid defensive line, you've got to have depth. And that's what I'm hoping they can build on, even with the loss to Justin Foster. I want to see a defensive line that's a difference maker and not just kind of like hold in place. The way I kind of look at it is Clemson can do enough on offense to win if they can stop some folks on defense. And I'm not even sure. I'm not sure they're going to do it with a defensive line that's not as deep as it has been on the last two national championship teams. What do you think about that, Houston?
Yeah, I think with the defensive line, it's there. When you talk about depth, Justin Foster, I felt like somebody was going to end up not being on the team this year that was on the roster last year, and I kind of feeling it was going to be Justin Foster for some reason. What I'm looking for as far as the defensive line is, you have 3 guys on that defensive line that were part of this stacked 2018 class, and they've been okay. They just haven't taken that step. Xavier, and some of that's COVID. Like, I'm not blaming anybody. I want to be clear about that. Like, I don't want to harp on that, especially, Xavier Thomas, who wasn't in game shape for weeks on end into the season. But taking the step this year and going and becoming the Xavier Thomas that knocked Eric Dungy out, or KJ Henry building on what he was, and then taking those young guys and developing. I think the depth's there. It's just taking the next step for everybody.
Yeah, I think that's what Dabo even said a moment ago. I saw on Twitter. He said that the defensive line needs to take that extra step up. The talent is absolutely there. You know that. But are we getting those 5-star kids KJ Henry to take that next step. He was pretty good last year in spurts. Xavier Thomas, obviously, we didn't see him for a lot of the year. And then even the young kids, Brian Persee, who he ate. And if Tyler Davis can stay healthy, and those kids, DeMonte Capehart, and the young guys, I mean, the talent is there, we think, right? We think with the 4s and 5s and stars that the talent's there. They just need to show it.
Well, all three of us picked different areas, and that's really keeps it intriguing and interesting. Another $1 for the vets, by the way, to check it out. There were some holes definitely at the end of the season. I think we all saw that. And speaking of which, one hole that I see now is a backup quarterback. Very, very thin in the quarterback room, if you ask me. And people say, don't worry about it. They have DJ. Yeah, DJ also was hurt this year, and they're a turned ankle away from Hunter Helms perhaps being the starting quarterback, a walk-on. And when you think about Clemson and how good this program has been for the last decade, imagine them walking into perhaps a big game with a walk-on or former walk-on as their starting quarterback, which could be the case if something happens to DJ. That all leads me to say, this is what I hate about recruiting, right? I'm an old dude for one, and I can't keep up. It moves too fast, etc. Ty Simpson, for like 2 weeks now, I was pretty sure he's going to come to Clemson. I was reading those tea leaves last week with JP Priester. JP, if you're listening, send me some good tea leaves. But then I listened to the Larry Williams podcast, just happened to listen to it this afternoon, got around to it. And at the very end, Paul Strelo says, it's looking like Alabama for Ty Simpson. And I'm like, what? Wait a second, what happened? And I go look, but the rival site still says Clemson. 24/7 says Clemson. But here's Strelo on this podcast saying Alabama. It's just confounding to me. Now, there are those out there that don't think Ty Simpson is the next great college quarterback, right? He's not Deshaun Watson, even though they were exactly at the same position in the 247 rankings, number 42 overall. Simpson's now moved up to 27, I believe. So, Houston, I don't know if you've had a chance to look at any film of Ty Simpson. I know Beef has studied him in depth for hours and hours and hours. But what's your take on the Simpson-Klubnik debate? And, does it really matter? Or is either one of them going to be the next great quarterback? For me, I just want depth and a good option behind DJ in 2022.
I think when you're talking about depth, either of those I think would be fine. I think I started to kind of get an idea that Ty Simpson might be looking elsewhere a few weeks ago when the Cade Klubnik talk kind of started heating up a little bit. And honestly, I don't mind. I love Cade Klubnik's film. He kind of reminds me of like Connor Shaw, to be honest with you. I know that's a terrible reference for some people, but that dude's a gamer. That dude's a gamer, and like that's what he reminds me of. He's just a gamer. And so, yeah, it's not as flashy. Ty Simpson's good. He's, he could be a Deshaun Watson type, although I don't necessarily see that dynamicness as like Deshaun. You put on Deshaun's film, and you're like, man, this kid is elite. And Ty Simpson is too. It's just, I don't know. Like there's other things I feel like that are at play too that we may not know about. You think about the 2023 class and who might be competing with that one and who Clemson might be in the mix with that don't have an offer out yet. There's one name like Arch Manning or this cousin of DJ's, this Lana Leva kid that they have. You've got Tad Hudson, you've got Dylan Lonergan. It's a very talented and stacked 23 class that I feel like Clemson's going to try to pull a trigger on a big-time name in. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of things. If Ty Simpson commits to Clemson, awesome. I'm totally fine with it. But I don't think the cupboard's going to be bare. I think you'll see an immediate offer to Cade Klubnik if Ty Simpson chooses to go somewhere else.
Well, Cade Klubnik's, I've said this for like three weeks in a row, I think now, Casey, so hit me over the head for repeating myself. But parents went to A&M. A&M has offered got another commitment in 2022. His high school stadium is 7 miles from the University of Texas. He has an offer from University of Texas. I see him more because these guys' games are on every Friday night here in the Austin area. They murdered people this year. Their average score literally was 60-8 or something. I think 4 teams scored on them before they got to the championship game in Quinn Ewers. I mean, the first playoff game, they won by like 63 points in 6A Texas football. So we're not talking chumps here. But he didn't – I mean, he's good. Like you said, he's more of a gamer type. Didn't really impress me as a superstar quarterback, and that's why I'm saying depth. He's not going to beat out DJ, right? But I'd rather have him behind DJ than Hunter Helms or Tyson or one of the other guys.
Absolutely.
Currently on the Clemson roster. I'm sorry, Casey, I jumped in on your spot, man. Go ahead.
No, there's no rhyme or reason to what we do here. How spoiled are we as Clemson alum and Clemson fans that we're having this conversation even, you know, and it probably dates back to Taj. When we had Taj Boyd, I say we, I fall into that trap too, Houston. But when Clemson had Taj Boyd, he was a 5-star kid that committed to Tennessee, West Virginia, and then came to Clemson and kind of turned the program. Then you go from Taj Boyd to Deshaun Watson. There was a Cole Stout in there, but and you know, obviously it brings us to new heights. Then you go from Deshaun Watson to what's the guy's name? He just left us. No, I'm just kidding. Trevor Lawrence, and you're at the top of the world. Now we're talking about another 5-star kid, a top 25 prospect in the country, and we're like, you know, if he comes, great. If not, you know, like we're spoiled rotten. I am actually on the Klubnik camp on this one, and has nothing to do with that star power. I don't think. I like him. Houston, you said it perfectly, because I was searching for a name when I was watching this film, and he is a gamer, and he has talent all over the field on his high school field, but I like his feet, and it's not even his feet running the ball. I like his feet movement. And one thing that I started watching this year, and it's the worst thing you could ever possibly do for quarterbacks, is watching feet, because I was watching Mac Jones and how bad his feet are. So I start watching feet when I'm looking at recruiting film. And I like Cade's feet. I like the way he sets up. I like his release. And I like the fact that he can pull the ball down, drop his head, and get an extra yard or two. Nothing against Ty Simpson. Again, same idea that Houston said. If he commits to Clemson, God, you know, I'll be all in on him. I'll still probably follow a little bit of Klubnik, but I wouldn't be upset if they miss on Simpson and get Klubnik. And it's a lot different than if they were to miss on Trevor Lawrence or Deshaun Watson in years past.
Well, I think I found the part I'm going to step out of here is Beef saying I like Cade's feet is what's going to go up on social media this week.
Rex Ryan.
How could I let that one go? Okay, news broke this afternoon. Artavis Scott is coming back to Clemson to be a graduate assistant. I guess he saw all the other graduate assistants getting to move on to work with Terry Bowden and in Louisiana at Monroe. So what's that all about there, Houston? Artavis Scott back in the fold. Can't hurt.
No, it can't. I think it's great that more players are coming back. I knew Thomas Austin in college. I know he's coming back. I'm glad he's doing that. So it seems like he's bringing almost like a second wave of great character players back to foster, and inevitably when Tony Elliott or whoever leaves to go take the next big job, raid for that. But I mean, they're high character people. Artavis Scott, I don't think had any issues when he was at Clemson. He was always well liked by everybody. I thought he was one of the things that I like in a wide receiver is just like a mean streak, little bit of grit, nastiness. And that's what Artavis Scott had, and I liked that the most about him, is because if he caught the ball, he wasn't going to go down very easy. And I think that was I want to say it was one of his first touchdowns against UNC in 14. Yeah. Catches the pass and just drags 3 dudes into the end zone. I was like, this dude, I love this guy. This is awesome. So I'm glad that you get that attitude for like coaching and bringing that out of wide receivers. I think that's a great pickup for the team.
Beef?
You know what I love about this is the culture aspect of it. The fact that Dabo constantly has these guys coming back. Constantly. So what does that do when you're sitting in a kid's living room well, maybe it's Skype or Zoom now, but you're sitting in front of a mom and dad, and you have guys like CJ Spiller. You got guys like Thomas Austin. You got guys like Artavis Scott and Rod McDowell's and all those guys that have been in the program under Dabo, and now can say they want to come back and work and be in that culture again. I mean, I think it speaks such volumes. My kid's only 3, so I got a couple of years to go, but it speaks volumes to that culture. And I won't go off on my soapbox, but like all these people saying that Dabo will take another job in Tuscaloosa in a few years. For what? He's got his babies around him at all time, and it's like being a dad, he's got everybody, and they all want to come back home, and it's a really cool thing to see. And I love the hire of Artavis Scott.
No doubt. Our guest is Houston Burnett of the Morgan Thomas Show, and I was going to pull that up here. Give me just a second, fellas. And where'd it go? There it is. There it is, Houston.
It's off tonight.
Yeah, our producer is a little slow, but there's our guest is Houston Burnett from the Morgan Thomas Show with Big Al. I don't see Houston's name on there, so I'm a little disappointed in that, Houston. I don't know about you, but
who do we talk to about that?
Yeah, we're still working with Morgan on that one. We've had people during the show be like, "Hey, why isn't Houston included on that?" And so I finally got an ad read now. On our
nice.
Show.
I heard
Morgan,
that. Yeah.
Our Lord Morgan has finally been so gracious enough to dole out an ad read from me. No, I'm just kidding. Morgan's great. But yeah, no, we're working on that. TBD, that'll happen. I got to look a shameless plug right now. He's letting me do a video series for his YouTube channel called Houston Has a Problem. It's more
cross that off now.
Yeah, it's more like college football variety. I know everyone in Clemson loves to talk about Clemson, but I'm a diehard college football fan. So if you like college football, I've got 2 videos already up on the top 5 luckiest and top 5 unluckiest college football programs.
Now you say 5, but there are a couple.
There's some honorable mentions. There's some honorable mentions.
It's hard to keep them 5. And
yeah.
You guys do a great job on the Morgan Thomas Show. Obviously, I comment and watch weekly, but I do like the offshoots that you're doing too. Not to blow smoke, but that's what I do.
And we appreciate you being here and Morgan being a good sport and not getting upset that we have you on. That's our reason. You love college football. We actually try to talk college football, but like 98% of the people who watch us want to talk nothing but Clemson. So we're branching out with the College Sports Network, but we got to go where our watch.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But hey, if you want to just risk it all and talk about BYU offensive line depth, how they're going to do in 2022 scheduling, playoff scheduling debates, where this and that, I live for this kind of stuff.
You got those names too that pop right in your head, man.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I used to, when I was young buck like you, man, I used to have it too, and now I'm old and I can't figure it out anymore.
You know what? And this isn't involved with Morgan Thomas, but I'll tell you what got me through the pandemic. There is a channel on YouTube, and I don't know this guy. I'm not endorsing him or whatever, but it's called SW561. It's weird looking. It's just like that SW561. And he has all these Sports Center highlights of centric sports from like the 1990s through the mid 2000s thus far. And he just finished up the 2001 regular season in college football. And like there was a couple games I was like, I watched that live. Like I remember BYU was undefeated and they got beat 72-45. And Nick Rolovich was the quarterback for Hawaii. And I watched that right before the Heisman Trophy. And here's the highlights of it. I was like, this is crazy. This is awesome. I love it.
I'm going to have to check that out.
Sounds like my 14-year-old, no, 14, he's born in 2006. He says 2007 was the greatest college football season ever, or the wildest ever. Appalachian State and Michigan, et cetera, et cetera. But so he was 1 when that season happened. But because of YouTube, as you said, he knows all about it. Our guest, again, is Houston Burnett from the Morgan Thomas Show. Fellas, I think we all 3 saw Clemson basketball victory over Wake Forest this afternoon. pretty. Well, it was a good game. There's a lot of bricks at the beginning. But as I told my 14-year-old, he walked in on the game and he said, well, that was a brick. And I said, yeah, but that's better than it was, because earlier Wake Forest was, and Clemson a couple of times, missed the entire basket. There's a couple of air balls that knocked guys out under the basket, I think. Anyway, Clemson comes away with the big victory, holding Wake Forest to 39 points. My takeaway from this, Wake Forest is not very good, and Clemson, as Houston put on Twitter earlier, the answer to the COVID pause is just don't play Virginia.
Don't play Virginia.
What's your takeaways this afternoon, Houston?
Yeah, well, I think this is – I mean, it's not perfect, obviously. 60 points. Casey knows how I feel about some of the offensive things that Brad Brownell's done, but the defensive effort has really picked up. They kind of haven't lost a step since they've beaten North Carolina and Louisville and Georgia Tech. So I'm impressed with the defense. If they can get the offense rolling and get back to their offensive output pre-first COVID break, I've said this time and time again, they have the talent to make a deep run in the NCAA tournament as long as they're not in the same bracket as Baylor or Gonzaga. They can make a deep run, but they can also get beat by UMBC or USCB or Roast Beef Tech or DeVry, whatever. They have that potential as well. But it looks like they've turned the corner. If they can just start hitting shots a little bit more, I'd love to see that.
Yeah, today was ugly. It was sloppy at times. There was multiple times that Clemson would run down the floor and hoist up a three early in the shot clock, and there was a lot of air balls. But that score kept ticking up, so it didn't nearly bother me as much. And I tend to Facebook message Houston when there's a problem during basketball games. And I didn't have to do that today because as frustrated as I'm watching the game and I'm like, why did he shoot that shot? And it wasn't even close. And when they went to a zone, they just stayed out and on the perimeter. But, man, I like this team. I say all that and to say I really like this team. I do. When they're good, they're good. And T.O. said it a couple weeks ago. When they are engaged on defense, Houston just said it, man, they could make a run. And they were engaged early today. And, yes, Wake Forest isn't a very good basketball team. However, they had a heck of a game when everything went right for them against Florida State over the weekend and took them to overtime. So this team just put up a 90 spot, 89, I think, against Florida State, and Clemson holds them to 39 tonight. So, yes, Wake Forest is where they are. They are what their record says they are, right? But, however, they're coming off – I know they've lost 3 games too, but they're coming off a pretty big high, I guess, in that Florida State game. This is a nice win, and it's a good win to get. It's good for Clemson fans, especially myself, to see a 21-point victory after a COVID pause because I get shell-shocked easy, and after that last COVID pause, those 3 30-point losses were very frustrating. My thumbs were tired from texting my guy over here.
Well, speaking of T.O., I wished he was on the call today because that guy was trying to tell me
he was on radio.
Well, I wish he was on TV that I was watching because the guy, Wake Forest, had scored 30 points in 30 minutes, and he says it's only a 14-point lead. And I said, Clemson doesn't have to score again, and it turned out to be right because at the time it was 44-30. Wake Forest rolled and got 9 points in the last 10 minutes. I mean, those guys are so bad. The ACC network guys are just terrible.
Yeah,
most of them.
When you have, I mean, look, I'm a little spoiled because when I was interning at WCCP, I dealt with Roy Philpott, Pro's Pro. He's ironically calling the South Carolina game right now on the SEC network. Get that mess out of here. Get him on the ACC network.
We love Roy.
But you're dipping in. Once you have so many networks within one body, you're really dipping into the. I guess if you can breathe and chew bubble gum and kick rocks at the same time and have a voice, you can make it on there. So we might have reached that phase of basketball season.
Well, I don't see any Spurtle commercials on the SEC network or what is it, the Irish potato peeler or whatever it is, Casey, right?
Yeah, the Irish potato peeler.
Hey, did they remind you that Virginia has a wide receiver that's 6'7"?
Or it
Full
goes all.
circle.
Hey, that was pre-ACC network because they used to talk about Logan Thomas, how tall he was.
Oh,
Remember that?
Lord have mercy. Yeah, I remember that.
There was
Did
a
you know?
commercial the other day during the baseball game that they played over and over again. It was a little bit more high rent, but man, I was ready to text you too, Marty, but I forgot what it is now. So it obviously didn't stick like the Spurtle or the Irish peeler.
Oh, the Spurtles in Irene's kitchen or whatever it is. Okay, fellas, we're not done talking basketball now. There's some high quality production. Casey has not seen this. Houston and Casey, this is brand new production on the show. And in Houston, Morgan's would be jealous of this production.
Oh, snap. Okay.
It's time for the great debates. History's greatest thinkers: Aristotle, Plato, Socrates, Cregan, Coleman. What the?
All right, guys. Took me at least 3 minutes to put that together. So Casey, I'm gonna put in an expense report for that one. So Houston, I don't know how you feel about this, but Casey and I have gone back and forth a little bit off the air about the state of recruiting for Clemson basketball. And Casey, I'm gonna let you speak for yourself, but my belief is that you think, it is what it is. And there's a lot of reasons around that. And, it's just the way it is. Like we used to think about Clemson football. So I started to do a little research, and I looked back, 2021, Tigers were 42nd in recruiting. 2020, they were 20th. In 19, they were 43rd. In 18, they were 62. In 17, they were 46th. 5-year average of 42.6, 42, 43, whatever. Looked at another team that I thought was probably similar to Clemson in basketball history, maybe, and certainly location challenges, et cetera, et cetera. Here's their 5-year average. That's second in the nation, 41, 19, 126, and 12, which comes out to a 40 average. Sounds really, about the same, but that team has 3 years in the top 20, 2 in the top 12. And if you take out the outlier year, their average is 18.5, whereas Clemson's outlier year, if you take that out, their high year, it's 37.5. Now, that other team, noted basketball power, Florida State. And that guy who was 126th, they had one recruit. And guess who that was? That was Devin Fazell, who ended up the number 11 draft pick in the NBA draft and is now has a pretty solid role with San Antonio Spurs. He was like the 200th recruit, and 2 years later, he's the 11th draft pick in the NBA draft, which tells me they're developing players at Florida. So here's my question. Houston, you're the guest first. Are the big-time recruits going to commit to the Brownell system, or is it always going to be Clemson grit, which I love to see, just would like it to be by 21 every now and then, like it was today? Or are we in for close games, win some, lose some forever, and being like the TCU of college basketball where you have a good year, Final 16, right? And then some off years, not making the NCAA tournament. Can we ever hope for better under Brownell, or is this the way it's going to be, Mr. Burnett?
Oh, man. I know that, so recruiting-wise, I just don't see big-time recruits. And I could be, let me say all this. I could be wrong. Because last year is an outlier where you got 3 really talented players. I think Brownell, the transfer portal recruiter, is better than Brownell, the high school recruiter. I.e., and I go back to this because I'm very, very, very bitter about this. Case in point, one Zion Williamson, who
couldn't afford.
Yeah, that's very true. Look, my dad and I, back when Duke was not, what they are now, back in the late 90s, my dad and I, huge Duke fans. So for Father's Day, I took him to go see Zion destroy Clemson and Cameron. I don't know why I did that now, but it was awesome. It was still cool. I went to Cameron, but I was still very mad that Clemson was on the doorstep of that, I just couldn't do it. A year later, Josiah James can't pull it in. And these are in-state kids in your backyard. And you're not even losing it to South Carolina. South Carolina's losing recruits to like Alabama. Like, that shows the state of their program. And so I'm kind of in the middle here. I don't think Clemson can initially be the program where you go in and get 4 and 5 stars. You're going to have a little bit of this Clemson grit development. But that being said, look what Oliver Purnell did. He got some great players, but he had a good eye. He got Terrence Oglesby, who I would have loved to see in this system today because he actually hit shots, or people who could, get rebounds. The problem with Purnell was you always wanted to press. Press never gets you anywhere in the tournament. You got to be able to diversify your defense, and that was the problem there. But he got the talent, and he developed the talent. Clemson was able to beat North Carolina and Duke by heavy numbers, but you just kind of had a system. With Brownell, it's just, I don't know. Like, it's just not. You don't have the system in place. You don't have the kind of like buy-in right now from everybody, and so unless you get somebody in there like this team and build on it. Because when Clemson went to the tournament in 2017, everybody had expectations in 2018. They didn't do it. It goes right back down. You can't have that if you go to the tournament this year, if you want to build this program any further.
That's my whole argument, is that with his recruiting, with the state of the recruiting, 42nd, let's say average 40th, that's the kind of team you're going to get, right? You're going to get some years really good, some years not so good. Whereas – and I tried to pick a team not like Kentucky and I should have maybe even gone with Frank Martin in South Carolina. They've gotten a few recruits over the years, but there's no superstar. And it seems like you only need really one, maybe 1.5 in college basketball to be a solid team. Now, I don't know if you know this, Houston. Casey's a former manager at Clemson basketball. So I want to get his input on Brad Brownell. And I think he thinks the opposite of me and probably you also.
A little bit, but so I was part of the Rick Barnes era. So he got players, and they were good. And the guys that were running in and out of Little John that we would line up and shake their hands when they walk in were guys like Tim Duncan, Stephon Marbury, names and names and names on a Tuesday night. You're watching. It was good times. But he got players. Now that wasn't the time. Once again, I'm dating myself, but that wasn't the time of 4 and 5 stars. But he got kids like Harold Jamison that were big bodies. And he put his system in play. Now, I don't know what Brownell's doing, but I was at practice every day for a year and a half. And they were banging constantly. And Barnes would just sit back and just let them bang. There were fights. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that. I think I signed a non-disclosure. But there were fights between the players. And he let them go. Like, not to get hurt. But he let them go, let them fight like it was a family. I just don't know if that's still a culture now. I don't know if that type of kid is still here. Having said that, 40 is where you are, and that's okay. And I actually like his transfer portal recruiting. I do. But you do need the high school kid, because that transfer portal kid, whereas a traditional recruit is coming for 4 years at Clemson, because they're not getting the one and dones. They're just not, and that's okay too. But they're traditional recruits coming for 3-4 years. That's what you're going to have, so you can build them up there. If you're going to be at 40, you better get to the tournament every year too. 64 teams. If you're at 40, you need to get in the tournament every year. But what is the ceiling for this program? I don't know. A Sweet 16 run would probably be okay. That's great. I know you guys talked about it a little bit last night, but they should have beaten that Kansas team back in 2017. It was a 4-point game. There were a couple late calls that probably shouldn't have gone against them and did. But if they didn't get down by 100, then maybe they do win that game. I don't mind Brownell, I guess, to a point. I do fully agree with Houston about his offense. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing? We're giving the ball to Amir we're giving the ball to Amir at the foul line or above at the arc, and then letting him dictate. Which I'm okay with the offense going through Amir Sims. That's your best player. It should, but I just don't know what we're doing sometimes. And when they Wake today, when they switched to I'm going way off topic, but as I'm apt to do. But when they switched to a zone, it looked like we had no idea what Clemson had no idea what they were doing. So anyway, I say all that to say 40's okay for me, and one 4 or 5 star player makes that 40 go to 20. That's it in basketball because you only have 15 scholarships. So, you get one of those kids, and I don't know if his recruit base is South Carolina. It's not, because you're losing Zion, you're losing Josiah. So, I don't know where he's going to get players. Heck, he should come to Jersey. There's a ton of kids here. Or live in Montverde Academy in Orlando, outside of Orlando.
Go abroad. That's where they got Omax. He went to Canada. Yeah. Go to Canada every year, or go wherever. Just
and there was a guy back in the 90s that would do that for Barnes. They got Woni Mohammed. I know he was in the U.S., but they had somebody that was abroad. I don't know if they were part of the staff or if it was even legal, but there was somebody that was scouting internationally. So it happened.
Well, my whole point is, if Florida State can recruit better than 40th, why can't Clemson? I get it. North Carolina, Duke, Kentucky, Kansas, to some extent Texas, and they're all going to recruit better than Clemson is. I understand that, and I'm not comparing them to those teams. I'm comparing them to Florida State, another football team, football school. Why can't he do something along those lines? Or the alternative is Devin Vassell. The players you do get, who was ranked 200th, I think, in high school, develop him. I don't think they're going to develop in this offense. That's my point. I think the floor is high, but the ceiling is low. I think I said that right. You guys know what I mean? I'm saying they're always going to be good because they're going to play defense. When I say good, that's relative. But their ceiling is limited because of the way they play. That's my take.
They're going to have a chance because they play defense.
No.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that window is closing for, people to be content with the floor is high and the ceiling's low kind of deal. Dabo changed the narrative, and I think for other sports, especially like soccer right now, baseball seems to be, I think, trending in the right direction. People are getting a little ill-content. I won't say that I haven't, maybe in conversations outside of this, kind of explored that, because I do think what's lacking is an identity. I think that the Clemson family, what they do in football and all that kind of stuff, it fits perfectly. And I think you can do that with basketball too, just different. You have to have a different approach to that. Clemson Grit's fine, but you got to integrate this a little bit better and have an offensive identity that's not whatever this is.
Chucking up threes. I mean, the slogans say it. Best is the standard tells me these guys are going to be the best, or that's their goal. Clemson Grit tells me, man, we really got to play our best every game because we don't have the best players, right? We got to dive for loose balls, which is all good. I love it. That's how I played if I ever saw the court. But the point is that there's limitations when your slogan is try hard, basically. I mean, I don't know.
Well, that's what Barnes did. Clemson Grit. Those guys all dove on the floor. I mean, heck, they practiced it. There was a bull in the ring drill that, I still have nightmares about, that these guys were just fighting like bulls in the ring. He did it. He did that Clemson Grit stuff and still won. So you can still do that. You can still have that mantra and diving on the floor and hustle plays and all this and that and still win. I think Brownell needs to stop by Dabo's office on the daily and thank him for as good as they are doing, to kind of take the limelight off of him a little bit.
And this would be my last point. And with all due respect to Casey's age, it was a different game back then than it is now.
Agreed.
Guys don't come up wanting to play 54 to 52 games. Like in Barnes' era, that was good. I mean, Parker and I, my son, always talk about the NBA games used to be 86 to 83, right? Now, if you don't score 120, you're not doing anything on offense, right? It's a defensive struggle if it's 115 to 110. And college is not like that, obviously, because the skill's not there, but it's got to be something better than 52 to 39 games, fellas. And if you're going to have 52 to 39, let's be Virginia.
Yeah, that's true.
They put several guys in the NBA winning, 55-40 every game. All right, let's talk about something a little bit more fun. I think we're all three are going to enjoy. Clemson baseball swept Cincinnati over the weekend. Davis Sharp looked very sharp on Friday. Ty Chuck on Saturday, pretty darn good. Caden Grice, not so much on Sunday, and I'm sure we'll get to that. Teodosio, Parker Brewer, Jonathan French, where did that guy come from, right? All had a pretty good series. They did all this without Keyshawn Askew, without Sam Hall, who I know from talking to him is one of Monty Lee's favorites, and, of course, without Adam Hackenberg, who I'm starting to wonder what's he going to do when he's back if Jonathan French continues to hit the ball and throw out runners like he did over the weekend. Okay, Houston, general observations about that first series.
I said this last night on the show. You can't really be mad at this weekend. I know Sunday had some blips, kind of some fluky things. I know that I don't think Caden Grice did bad. I think he's gotta be a freshman and go through the lumps of this. He gave up a couple runs and led to some more. I think Rashesh Pandya came in this weekend, and he looked good. Outside of that fluky little, hey, that ball drops on Ryan Ammons, because those were Pandya's runs. I think Clemson looked good. The pitching looks good. I think the offense is further along than they were to begin last year, because if you remember, I can't remember how many times Clemson had to win a game 1-0, 2-1, 3-2, 5-5-8. They're a little bit more clutch in their hitting. They need to develop a little bit more power, but you have people like Jonathan French and James Parker and Davis Sharp that can at least set that. And I think Caden Grice, where Davis Sharp is evolving as a pitcher, I think Caden Grice will evolve as a hitter, because he looked good this weekend hitting the ball. And so I think that's kind of how things will evolve.
Yeah, I should admit, I had a whole line in here about the bullpen. I left them out. Matt Clark with 4 innings on Friday. Rashesh Pandya and Jeffrey Gilbert all had good series. Casey, your general observations.
Yeah, after game one, I wrote an article that had gross overreactions after game one. They weren't really that overreactions, but I looked across the stat line for other schools, and I was seeing other teams scoring 13, 12, 15, winning games 15-12, and here we are, scrapping out a 5-0 victory. Nothing wrong with it, because Sharp was fantastic on the mound, and I love that Sharp-Clark duo on Friday nights. God willing, if Sharp can go 7 and Clark comes in and goes 3, that would be ideal, because it had Cincinnati flummoxed, man. It was fantastic. Once again, I look across the state and see South Carolina hitting the ball, especially that Wes Clark. And I look up and down the Clemson lineup, and outside of Jonathan French, he did have a home run by Dylan Brewer, and Parker had one too. But where's the power going to come from? So I like small ball. I'm actually one of those guys that does like the small ball when it works. Friday night we saw a bunch of base running blunders, if you will, although I do like the getting thrown out at home. I think, Houston, you said that last night too. That's okay. Be aggressive, especially with 1 out or with 2 outs, I think it was. So that's okay. But I like this team again early on. I like James Parker a lot. I'll be interested to see what Monty does with the lineup, especially I've been wanting to see Kier Meredith. He looked so good last year in a small sample size. I was so excited to see him break out this year. Heck, the kid was drafted in the 8th round or something by the Cubs, was a huge prospect coming out of high school, and he just hasn't really done a lot for us. I'm a big Bryce Teodosio fan. I know he hasn't really produced at the plate, but, man, if there's a better center fielder, JP said it on our show, and he said it on the Houston show too, man. If there's a better center fielder in the country, I want to see him. Because that guy makes line drives. He is where line drives go to die. So my initial reactions, love Sharp, like Olenchuk, bulldog. I mean, literally, it's an overused phrase in baseball, but he is a bulldog. After he got out, he threw that first pitch kind of a little bit wild, and you kind of like, all right, freshman. And he even said it. You get that second strike, and it's like, oh, it's just baseball. Yeah, it's just throwing baseball. So I loved his moxie on the hill. I think Grice will be fine, too. I agree completely with Houston. He's a freshman, man. Let him be a freshman. And it's got to be a little weird for him to be at the plate 2 days and then pitch a day, for even some flow. But, man, his hacks, we were told how he was going to swing and miss a lot. He didn't swing and miss much at all. He made contact, and it was good contact a lot of times too. I like his makeup. I like his size. I like his swing. Those lefty swings are just sweet. I'm excited about this Clemson baseball team.
Okay, a couple things here. I want to say this about the base running. I don't have a problem. The first guy thrown out the plate, I mean, what's he going to do? He went on contact, right? And the second one was aggressive, and catcher made a great play, right? No problem. No problem with those. The getting picked off first was where the problem sets in for me. The not tagging up when the ball's at the center field wall from second to third with nobody out, that's where it is. For me, that's an issue. And I would say, okay, it's game one, but I don't have the best memory in the world, Casey knows, but it seems to be a trend for Monty Lee teams that base running mistakes over and over and over. Maybe it's college, and I just don't see it happen to the other teams, and it does. But, man, they make a lot of outs on the bases. That's just my takeaway.
Well, now I'll say this in prep for South Carolina. South Carolina does have a powerful lineup, but the thing that they struggle with is their fielding. I watched a little bit of their game with Dayton. Their first three batters, there was 3 errors with them. Now, there was some crazy stuff that happened where they only gave up 1 run, and one of those errors ended up in an out. But that's just kind of how it works for South Carolina and Columbia, I guess. But their fielding is not great, but their power, the way that I see this South Carolina team is similar to the first 2 Monty Lee teams, where it was you got a heart of the order that is just a murderer's row: Clark, Eister, and Mendham. And if you can make it through that, you still have to deal with some power. Colin Burgess, Braylon Wimmer, Brady Allen, they're all really good. But the one good thing about this is we've seen Clemson deal with this before. This is not that much different than the team last year, a handful of guys. But Clemson was able to go in. They pitched a gem on Friday night. I wouldn't say small ball. They hit home runs against them the first game, but they small balled them in game 3. And honestly, nearly came back in game 2 if they hadn't given up so many homers. So maybe this is incentive for Davis Sharp to come out and look good on Friday night. So I think Clemson's got a chance. Now, Carolina could kill us. Kill Clemson if they just throw a bunch of fat pitches. But I think Clemson can win 2 out of 3 this weekend. I think Clemson's a better defensive team and a better pitching team. And as long as they don't run themselves out, I think they got a chance.
That is if they get 3 games in. Last time I looked, Friday looks like 90% chance of rain and 50 degrees in Clemson. Saturday's at Fluor Field. Sunday's in Columbia at 1:30. Just to speak to what Houston's mentioned, the Gamecocks have scored 41 runs in 4 games. They swept Dayton and beat Winthrop. I don't know how good any of those teams are right now. We don't know how good Cincinnati is. My sense is Cincinnati, they look like they could play baseball, just didn't have the players that Clemson did. Gamecocks are batting .359. They hit 14 home runs. My man by himself has 7. What's his name? I forgot.
Wes Clark.
I'll know it probably the end of the weekend, I'm sure.
Yeah, he hit 3 last night. He's hitting, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, he's hitting 900 right now.
No,
769. He dropped because he was 10 for 13 overall, but that's still ridiculous, man.
Gracious.
As a team, they're slugging .775 with 441 on base. They have a whip of 1.03 on the mound. They're striking out a batter and a half inning still. That's pretty good. Clemson, on the other hand, .293 team batting average, 4 home runs Casey talked about, .467 slugging, which is actually higher than South Carolina, which is kind of interesting. There's $2 for the veterans. 400 on base percentage. Clemson has a better whip than South Carolina at 0.93 because of the walks. And South Carolina gave up like 18 walks in those 4 games. Clemson had 7. That's why the whip is where it is. And Clemson striking out 1.14 opponents per inning. So sounds like Clemson has a better pitching, and perhaps we'll see. And South Carolina has a better hitting, and maybe Clemson can pull it out on the field. That's what Houston thinks. Casey, what's your take on the weekend?
The pitching for South Carolina is what kind of jumped out at me when I was doing a little research on them, and I did watch a little bit of their tape too. I just wanted to see Wes Clark hit. Man, he's a man. He is a man. He reminds me a little bit of Seth Beer. Just every time he's up, you're gonna watch. He's must see TV. But Friday night they went with Thomas Farr, who's a redshirt junior, so he's been on campus 4 years, and he had a good outing last year in 5 innings against Clemson with I think he gave up 2 hits and had 3 Ks. But he had 8 strikeouts in 5 innings. 6 innings on Friday night. He gave up a run. He did walk 2, and then they kind of pieced together the rest of that game. But they were up 12-1, I think, at that point. Then Saturday they went with Brandon Jordan. He's a senior there, so he's been on campus too. He had another. He was 2-0 last year, 1.71 in 4 outings. But the number is like 32 strikeouts over 21 innings last year. So they kind of stack their pitching staff too Friday, Saturday. Then they ran out a lefty on Sunday, Julian Bosnick, who's a Tampa kid who seemed to struggle a little bit, kind of like Caden Grice. He had 4 walks, but he had 9 strikeouts in 3 1/3 innings. He had 9 strikeouts. So they're not sure. Coach Kingston's not sure what they're going to do on Sunday, but man, obviously this kid's pretty electric if he's got 9 strikeouts in 3 1/3. So I'm a little worried about the South Carolina pitching staff just against this Clemson offense. But like Houston said, if they can kind of play a little bit of small ball and get on base and not run themselves out of innings and games, they'll have a chance. You got to limit the bats. What I saw was limit Eister, limit Clark, obviously, and Mendham a little bit. I think Mendham's hitting 333. So, but he can get hot in a hurry. Yeah, Clemson's got a chance, man. It's baseball. Anything can happen. And just spoiler alert, we're not going to end up undefeated.
Breaking news. I need the breaking news sounder. Here's what I'll say about Clemson. Another thing, my last little thought is they look pretty darn good in those uniforms. Remember the Jack Leggett eras, and everybody used to complain they were small guys like Jack was. There ain't nothing small about Caden Grice. Those guys are solid, man. And Jonathan French, he's only 5'10", but he's like 210, and there ain't no fat on that dude. They look like a college baseball team should look. Like he's finally, I think it's year 6, and he's finally building this team into what he wants, right? Every time I've talked to him, he's talked about power and hitting long balls. And if you follow him on Twitter, somebody hits a home run, he goes crazy and is the biggest cheerleader. He wants to do that. And he likes big power guys, and he's got them whether in the field, at the plate, or on the mound. It looks like. Then there's some exceptions, some Matt Clarks, etc. But they look a lot more like a solid college baseball team, like we see in Omaha in June.
In fact, we haven't had to look at Omaha. We've had to look at Clemson the last couple of years outside of last year to see a solid team that came in here and beat the snot out of a Monty Lee coach team in Vanderbilt.
Yeah, no doubt. Okay, Casey, here's your wheelhouse, man. Softball team, 6-2, 4-2 in the ACC. I told Houston I don't follow it much. I've started to follow a little bit, but that's kind of your bailiwick on the show.
They're good. What's the? I don't.
And
know
that'll be it for today.
I don't know how to pronounce her name, but Giambrosia.
Is it Giambrosia, or are you talking Gumbarda?
Gumbarda,
yeah, Gumbarda.
We're in Jersey. We pronounce every syllable, especially Italian names. But no, she's been great hitting the long ball. Valerie Cagle. We haven't seen a lot of Cammie this year yet, but I like, once again, they're infiltrating the transfer market, building the program. They're beating teams like Virginia Tech. They lost 2 or 3, but they beat Virginia Tech, who was ranked 14th on opening day. They go down to Georgia Tech and sweep Georgia Tech. They're winning games that they probably shouldn't in year 2 of existence. It reminds me a little bit of back when, once again, dating myself, but the women's soccer team in their second year of existence, they were beating teams that they shouldn't have either. So en route to a NCAA tournament bid. I really like watching. This is a really cool sport for those that aren't watching. The softball girls, they can play too, and the games fly by, and there's a lot of action in them, and it's a lot of fun. And the ACC is really good, so there's going to be I can't wait to get to McWhorter Field to watch them at some point.
Well, here's my takeaway. They and Houston, we haven't talked about this, so you might disagree. Feel free. They have the best uniform combos of any Clemson team.
Agreed, 100%. They put everybody else, the all orange, the smoke gray, or the whatever, the gunmetal gray. I am not. See, I'm not an old fogey in a sense that people are like, you can't have gray or black uniforms at Clemson. I'm like, blackout in Death Valley. I don't care. You can hate me for it. Do that because it looks dope. Those
with
are
the woohoo or no woohoo?
I'm not going to say anything about that.
That starts fights, Casey. Yeah, I don't know what it is, but the combos they put out, it's just great. I mean, and I don't want to reduce it to that. Obviously, they're very good on the field too. But man, every uniform combo some in the football, you look at them, you go, yeah, purple pants and an orange top or whatever. Yeah, when they used to do that, but every combo on that softball team looks good. I don't know how they managed to do it, but every one of them looks good. All right, Houston, we've kept you in over an hour, and the union is saying that we're going to have to pay you overtime if we keep you any longer. Hey, we thank you so much for joining us. And what night are you guys on? I thought you were on Monday night, but you were on Tuesday last night. I'm confused.
Yeah. We moved to Tuesday right after football season.
Okay.
It just worked out better. We moved to Tuesdays at 8 on YouTube and Facebook, The Morgan Thomas Show. You can follow me at Houston_SLC. I'm the guy with the Leonardo DiCaprio picture from Django Unchained with a Clemson hat on and a natty light in his hand. That's the picture. So that's
it's a good follow. It's a good
follow. Plug your YouTube series again. You're talking about.
Yes. So if you go to the Morgan Thomas Show page, it's Houston Has a Problem. That's my videos. We got another one coming out tomorrow. Tomorrow afternoon. I'll probably have another one drop in about another week or two. So we're going to just do a variety of college football. I'm going to try to have some guests on in the next month or so. Still kind of getting situated with the baby, so that kind of duty calls, right? So that's what we're dealing with. But yeah, go check it out. Give us a follow and watch us on Tuesday night.
All right, Houston Burnett. Thank you so much, Houston.
Thanks, Houston. Really appreciate it.
All right. Well, Casey, that was a lot of fun. He's always fun to talk
to.
Makes us laugh. Can take a good joke, like a little baby Houston with a beard.
He knows his stuff too. Him and Alan Adams on that show, Morgan too.
Yeah,
but
Big Al.
Him and Big Al are really, really good. They know their stuff. They're a good watch.
Yeah, for anybody watching and listening, we watch that show and we enjoy it. It's no competition. We hope everybody's successful and. Really, really love Houston. He's a funny guy. Would do anytime I ask him to come on, he's happy to come on. Big Al, great information over there at the Morgan Thomas Show. A lot of fun. Casey checks it out regularly. That's kind of time with my wife on Monday, which is why I was asking him, because usually during this weekend I'm watching sports, and by Monday she's ready to rip the head off if we don't want some crazy murder show. But anyway, a lot of fun. Tuesday night. The Morgan Thomas Show with Big Al and, of course, Houston. Casey, speaking of good shows, the Chop and Beef guys have been on fire lately. Your viewership is growing, and you guys have just really hit your stride this winter.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, I believe we're taking a hiatus this week. I think we're not going to have tomorrow's show. We're going to come back bigger and stronger and better than ever next week. Or I probably should change that to bigger and stronger, and we'll be back next week. But we have a lot of fun. Once again, it's definitely a no holds barred kind of show, and not safe for work. Definitely not. But yeah, we have a good time, and we're kind of really taking on the moniker of three guys in a bar, talking about just about everything sports related, kids related, youth sports is a big thing that we're doing right now. We kind of tease a baseball preview, and then. We're doing that right now. We're back on that. The MLB's coming up, so we just have a good time. It's three guys shooting the breeze, man, and no real path to go on.
Well, I told you a couple of weeks ago that I laugh at it because I see myself in some of the characters, and maybe a little bit of the Beef, a little bit of Jeff, and some of Locks too. So there's a little bit of me. Or a little bit of each of you rolled up into me. So it makes me laugh. At least I laugh hard at least one time, and I chuckled throughout the show. So
I'm not scared. I'm not scared of being the goof, and obviously I take a little bit of that role here on this show too. I'm not afraid of that, because it's kind of fun to be laughed at and laughed with. So I take a lot of pride and pleasure in that.
We should change the name to Two Goofs, because I'm kind of the same way as you saw. I got all this production, I can't even get the faces up on the screen to start.
We have a good time, Marty. We have a good time.
No doubt. No, they don't take ourselves too seriously. All right, Casey, will you do the close up? I got a new close too, so you do that and I'll find the new close.
Awesome. Thanks again to Houston Burnett of the Morgan Thomas Show and to the Morgan Thomas Show. Thanks to everyone on the Facebook group, especially Nelson Wilhite, who not only helps us on the Seldom Used Reserve College Football Discussion Board page, but he also edits mine and Marty's articles for College Sports Network. Thanks to everyone on Sheldon Muse Reserve, Sluggo Podcast, and Chop and Beef, which does record normally on Thursdays. Each and every one of you who likes, listens, and reviews our show and shares it as well. We really do truly appreciate you. On behalf of Marty, Sheldon Muse Reserve Coleman,
I got it right.
Casey, I am Casey the Beef Cregan. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you next week.
Next week, Case. Get your Spurtle.
I think we're done here.